up in Shelburne, Vermont. It seemed only natural for him to follow in the footsteps of several generations in his family and join the military. Tech Sergeant Beans served in the U.S. Navy Reserve, and Vermont Air National Guard. During this time, he traveled to several locations around the world. He retired in August of 2011 after 26 years of service. Please give a warm Team USA welcome to Technical Sergeant Beans.
Well, technology. I did have a nice music video to play. Can we play the music at least?
We can plan B. We can go into the library. Did you want to talk about the artifacts first and then? Do you want?
Just play the we can just play the music for a minute. That way I can talk about my care package. It'll make more sense. So this music video was by it was a local school. What was it, It's in Vermont. They sent Caledonia. What was it?
Sorry, guys.
So there's a video that goes with it. It's the school. It's the school chorus that did the video, and it's a local singer that did the song. It's called Box of Kisses. Go ahead.
Carry overseas, just a secret all wrapped up, and it's
I got when I was in Saudi Arabia. This came with it, along with my box of Kisses, which actually had Hershey's Kisses in it. Some other things that came in a care package. This little guy, also from Saudi, I got from my oldest stepdaughter. She sent me that. She went to Disney and sent this over to me. We also get cards from kids. And I did answer each one of them. And from another group, we got a little pocket American flag that we did carry with us. And I did carry it while I was in Saudi Arabia. So, my whole career started in 1985. August to be exact, is when I went to Navy boot camp in Great Lakes, Michigan. So I went to the boot camp, I went through boot camp, and then I went through an A school, which was going to be my rate, which was a gunner's mate. So from there, I went overseas to a ship called the USS Belknap. It was the flagship of the 6th Fleet, and we were stationed in the Mediterranean, home ported, Gaeta, Italy. This here is my deployment jacket from that time. Has all the countries that I visited while on that deployment. Also has the state I'm from, the ship I was on, and the years of the deployment I was on. This here, this is gunnery excellence for our 5-inch 54 naval gun, which is a gun that's 5 inches in diameter, has an effective range of about 13 miles. And we went gold that year, which means we shot excellent on the range for 5 years straight. And Aries, my rate, of course Popeye, called me gunner, and Com 6 Fleet. In France, I traded one of those Dixie cups for a French hat. We call this a Dixie cup. It's your typical sailor hat. Does anybody know? Has anybody here have family that was in the military or in the military? A lot of you. A lot of you. Very good. Anybody Navy? Yeah? Nice. Nice. Air Guard? Great. I did have, my grandfather was Army. Anybody Army? Cool. Don't think I had any Marines that I can recall. This here is the Navy dress blue, also known as the Cracker Jacks. You guys seen the sale on the Cracker Jack box, right? Yeah. Well, these are called Cracker Jacks. There's a lot of significance in this particular uniform. Has anybody heard sailors be referred to as Jack Tars? Anybody heard that phrase, Jack Tar? No? Well, it comes from the days of the old sailing ships. They had ponytails back then, and they would put tar on them. This was so when they got into a fight, and that the swords wouldn't cut their neck. The tar ponytail would stop them, would stop the swords from cutting the back of their neck. These flaps used to be detachable, and they would put them on to protect their uniform from the tar. The scarf that we wear, it it's tied with a square knot. Back in the days of the old sailing ships again, the sailors used to tie their sea bags with a square knot. And if they were tied with anything different, that they would know that somebody had been into their bag and stolen some stuff. This can also, once it's unraveled and unfolded, can be used as a bandage in case somebody gets hurt. The pants, notice there's a lot of buttons on them. There's 13 of them. They represent the original 13 colonies. You also notice that they're really wide at the bottom. You guys probably know them as flares nowadays. They were used to be called bell bottoms. The reason why the Navy would use bell bottoms is if you had to abandon ship, it was easy to get these off when you're in the water, when you got bigger on the bottom. So mostly survival. The Dixie cup, this can protect you from the sun. You can also use it to bail water with. And if you're bored, got an instant frisbee. So, it comes in handy. It's a good-looking uniform, and the whole meaning behind it is very useful. This particular hat is from my boot camp and is signed by everybody that was in my boot camp company. Let's see. Also overseas, they would send this home to your families every once in a while. It was a newsletter to tell the families back home what's been going on your ship. All right, Jen's got the pictures going. Now some naval terms. Anybody know any naval terms? Comes strictly from the Navy or nautical? Anybody heard port and starboard? Port is what? Which side of the ship? How many letters in port? Yes?
Is it the left side?
This is the left side. Easy to remember. 4 letters in port, 4 letters in left. And then the other is starboard. Anybody know what the forecastle is? How about bow? What the bow of a ship is? Yeah?
Wouldn't that be the front?
That's the front. It's also called the forecastle. How about fantail? Anybody heard the word fantail? No? That's the back. Very good. What do we call the floor? What's the floor, yeah?
The poop deck?
The deck. It is the deck. The floor is the deck. How about a water fountain? You know what we call a water fountain? There's 2 names we call a water fountain. We call it a roomer. You know what a roomer is, right? Come on, guys, you gotta know what a roomer is. Spread rumors all the time, right? It's also called a scuttlebutt, which is a fancy word for rumor. Because you talk around, the sailors would talk around the water barrels, and that's how rumors would start. What do we call a door? A door is a hatch. Ceilings? That's the overhead. Have you ever heard of a bathroom being called a head? You know why it was called a head? Just has to go back to the days of the sailing ships. Well, in the back of the days of sailing ships, you know what a figurehead is, right? On a ship, on the old ships. It's usually a lady or something on the front of the ship, nicely decorated. That's the head of the ship. Also is where the sailors went to the bathroom. Because as the ship went up and down, it would get a natural washing from the ocean and flush itself right out. Yep. So that's why it's called a head. Now this is old and outdated now, but this is the Blue Jackets manual. This is the manual that is used in the Navy that tells us everything we need to know. It's a big book. Yep. I do have an older one that I was unable to find, but it was my father's. The keel is my graduation book from boot camp. It shows boot camp life and everything else, and then this was specifically for my boot camp company. I also have another one of these. That was my dad's. So I went in the Navy, mostly because probably my dad did. But my military family, from World War II to 2011, we had somebody consistently in the military. My grandfather was in World War II and Korea. My dad and uncle were both during the Vietnam era and all through the Cold War. And I went in 1985 and stayed in until 2011. Any questions on the Navy? Yes?
Were you expected to know all of the information in your handbook?
No. No. This has information about everybody's job. It's got nautical terms. It's got all kinds of stuff in it. What to expect, knots, all kinds of stuff. My specific job, I dealt with the 5-inch 54 gun mount and small arms. That was my job. And I was ship's armorer, which meant I ran the place where all the guns are kept. Oh, one more thing from the Navy. This right here, this little block of wood, came off of the USS Constitution. Anybody heard of the USS Constitution? It's in Boston, also known as Old Ironside. It is the oldest commissioned ship in the United States Navy from the Revolutionary War. They were selling those to make money for a restoration of the Constitution, so I was lucky enough to purchase one. Back to my boot camp, these two guys here, these were my company commanders. Remember them to this day, very well. HT1 Elks and MMC Bond. Never forget them, ever. So, my ship, the USS Belknap, in 1975 had a horrific collision with the John F. Kennedy, which was an aircraft carrier. I think Jen's got the pictures of what the ship looked like after the collision. tore everything from the main deck up off. 9 sailors died that day, 8 from the Belknap, 1 from the JFK, which is amazing considering the damage that was done to the ship. They fought those fires all night long. And they saved the ship. At that time, it was a destroyer. When it went back to get refitted, they put it back together and commissioned it as a cruiser, which is what it was when I got on. In, what was it, 1990? 90 or 91, I can't remember. It went to Malta for Summit of America with, it was Reagan or Bush? I think it was Bush. With George Bush and Gorbachev from Russia for a huge summit. So this ship has quite a lot of history. There was a lot of firsts about it. Which brings me to this book right here, which I am going to give to the 7th and 8th grade classes. These are stories about my ship. It tells it from when it was built to when they sank it during a SINK-X exercise. In the last chapter of this book is from the wives of the sailors who were on the Belknap. There's a huge section on here about the crash. Huge section. It's all short stories. It's chronologically in order. So I will leave that here with Jen. And if you want to read, want some really good history reading about a specific ship and the days of the lives in the ship, this will help. Starbuster was a code name it was given during the Vietnam War when it was doing radar control for aircraft. So that's why they call it Starbuster. Okay, any more questions about the Navy? All right. In 1994, I went from the Naval, actually in 89 or 90, joined the Naval Reserve Center, which was in Burlington. Everybody knows where the Leahy Center is? That used to be the Naval Reserve Center. If you look to the left, go out the building and go to the left, there's a statue of the lone sailor. That's to commemorate the Reserve Center that was there for such a long period of time. From the Reserve Center, I joined the Vermont Air National Guard, where I was a combat arms instructor and security forces. Combat arms instructor, I instructed people, took care of all the base firearms, and instructed people on how to use them. Then came September 11th. That day, I was called in at 12 o'clock, noon, to report to the base. When I got to the base, there was a truck backed up to my armory with ammo. I grabbed ammo and was in that armory for the next week and a half. What I did is I was handing out weapons and ammo to security forces who were protecting the base. At that time, we had 70 members of security forces. When I got to the base at 1 o'clock, we were at 70% manned. And we had planes already over New York City. The base went from 100% peacetime to flying war missions in a couple of hours. So we were the first combat aircraft over New York City, the first to defend.
How long did it take to get there?
How long do you think it took our planes to get to New York City from Burlington Airport? Anybody have a guess?
12 minutes.
That's about right. 12 minutes, full afterburner. They can get there. So, for my time with the Air Guard, for my activation for September 11th, I got this plaque.
We actually have a picture from Bear Rogers,
Oh.
Mary Ellen's brother-in-law.
Well, you got that right there.
And you got that too? Right back at ya.
Which takes me to this. That flag was flown on December 5th, 2001, call sign Maple 31, aircraft 1159. Lieutenant J. Overton, also code, his code name was Dude. This flag was flown in an F-16 over New York City that day for their combat air patrol. This I gave to my father, and I also gave another one to my father-in-law, who was a Marine and Vermont Army Guard. So this flag's got a lot of memories. For Operation Noble Eagle was what the operation was. This shadow box is what they gave me when I retired. This is my whole military career, summed up in a box. The flag was flown over the Vermont Air National Guard. That was my rate and rank in the Navy when I left. Rate and rank in the Air Guard, Tech Sergeant. The coins represent some of the different deployments I was on and the unit I was with. Of course, my awards and my security police shield. Defensor Fortis is what the security forces are known for. Defending the fort is basically what it means. So if you guys want to take a look at that, you're more than welcome. The coins in here, they're challenge coins. It's a big military tradition, and they pass them out to people that deserve it. They usually do it with a handshake. They'll put the coin in their hand and they'll shake the hand and give them the coin. So my one of my deployments with the Air Guard, and I did it by myself, I went down to Tucson, Arizona for what was called Operation Jumpstart, which was basically we were watching the border down in Arizona. We had guard all along the Mexican border at that particular time. And I was in charge of the Army there as well. After that, I did a backfill at Davis-Monthan Air Force, where I worked on the range there. And then my last deployment was to Saudi Arabia in 2010. was something in the slide slew. It was a lot of those pictures from those deployments, from my desert warfare school. Also, my grandfather's in those pictures. My dad, my brother, who was Navy also. And 2010, I did lose both my brother and my dad to my brother to brain cancer and my dad to diabetes. So it was a rough year with the deployment and everything going on. It was tough, but we pulled through it. Biggest influence for the military was my grandfather. I was really close to my grandfather. I was actually in Italy when he passed away and was unable to come home. Anybody have any questions about the Air Guard?
Some of you have said in your career plans that maybe you'd like to spend some time in the military. This is a great opportunity to find out more about what that life is like.
Anybody want to join the military? Thinking about it? Maybe? Good career plan. Yeah? What branch you think?
Probably the Army or military.
Army?
Yeah.
Army's good. Yeah. My grandfather was 30 years Army. Started private, retired a lieutenant colonel. My uncle started off in the Navy and he retired from the Vermont Army Guard. And his wife also was Army Guard. One of the pictures Jen has is one of the air shows with my cousin, who was the camera girl for WCAX. Her name's Robin Beams. So if you ever watch the news and you see Robin Beams, that's my cousin. That's my dad's brother's daughter. She was covering the air show. And she also covered when I departed for my deployment and was there covering it when we returned. So my family has a huge military tradition. One thing in the Navy is our living quarters. Do you have those? Can you pull up the berthing?
Is that what you sent me last night?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pictures of the berthing. Really,
BERTHING,
Yeah.
not giving birth, but your birth is your.
where you live. Yeah. Very tight. Very, very tight, yeah. Very small space with a lot of people around you. And your locker is underneath you. You sleep on top of your locker. So your whole world is in the space of a bed, and then we have a small, here we go, have a small stand-up locker to go with it on board ship. Tight living quarters. So you better become friends with all your shipmates really fast, because you're going to be living with them pretty close.
How many bunks are in that space?
Ours, what did I figure out? We had about 40 bunks in my particular berthing, and there was a couple that were bigger than mine. I think 1st Division, which was the deck division, had about 100 in theirs.
Do you learn to sleep through everything?
Yep. I actually liked when the ship was rocking back and forth a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit. Kind of like being in a cradle. That's another thing you learn to do in the Navy is when you're eating your meal and you're sitting down, you can't just put your tray down and start eating some nights. Sometimes you can, other nights not so much. You have to grab your cup and hold on to your tray and then try to eat while the ship's doing this. Up, down, left, right, sideways. The seas got so rough one day there was actually footprints on the wall. where the ship took a heavy roll.
As a landlubber from Shelburne, were you seasick when you first went to sea, or how did you get over that?
I didn't get seasick till we got into like 9 to 10 foot seas. That's when I started getting seasick. The heaviest seas I was in was about 15 footers. I missed the 20 footers, I was on leave. And when the ship turns around in heavy seas, they pass over the intercom. Stand by for heavy rolls while the ship comes about. So they warn you, yes.
Was it hard for you to adjust from like having your own space to have like share with like a bunch of different people?
Boot camp kind of prepared you for that. When you go to boot camp, they kind of shock you, and they constantly yelling at you, and they tear you down, and then they stop a lot of that yelling and they build you back up. So you get used to working as a team, a close-knit team. Because in the military, team is a totally different world than in the civilian world. As a team in the civilian world, yeah, you work together and you have fun together. In the military, you're counting on your team to keep you alive. You have to know that the guy behind you has your back and is going to help protect you from any number of things that can happen. The closest I came to was in we were in pretty heavy seas. They were 7 to 8 footers, and we were refueling. In the Navy, in the U.S. Navy, they refuel underway. So you have two ships side by side with fuel lines coming across. So you're a moving gas, your gas station is moving next to you. To hook those lines up, you have to throw a line across to the other ship. And then they connect a small line to it, and you pull that along, and then a bigger line, and a bigger line, and finally you bring the cable across, and then attach it that the gas pump comes across on. Anyway, we were in 7 to 8 foot seas. It was dusk, getting dark, and we were taking gray water over the bow, which means water was coming over the front. And the ships were doing this next to each other. I was the gunner's mate who fired the line throwing gun. And it had a little rubber thing on the front with chemical lights in it, lights that you break and shake up and they light up. Those go into it. My first shot bounced off of their bridge. Their shot hit the side of our ship, so the ships are going like this. So you got to time your shot. My next shot went up into their radar, and we had to cut the line because it was spinning out really quick. Their next shot bounced off our bridge. So I went to step up for my next shot. A wave came over the bow. The chief boatswain's mate was standing next to me. And thank God he grabbed a hold of me. Because if not, I would have gone over the edge between two ships and probably wouldn't be here today. So that's an example of you've got to trust the people you're with. In the Guard, I was on a fire team. I was fire team leader. I had to trust that my team would protect me if we needed to. And I did. I trusted them 100%. And I would trust any one of them today, to this day, with my life. So the camaraderie in the military is very strong. I'm still really good friends with some of the people that I was on board ship with. And I was dissing technology a little while ago, but if it weren't for Facebook, I wouldn't have touched base with some of them. So it was pretty good to talk to some of them. One of my shipmates, he was originally from Essex, but I had to go all the way to Italy to meet him. and he now lives in Milton. So that's kind of what life is in the military. It's very trusting. You've got to learn to live real close knit with people, and a lot of joking around, passing the time away. But when things get serious, they're there to back you up, 100%. Anybody have any other questions? Yes.
What made such an impression on you? You showed us the picture of the two gentlemen that, I don't know if it was at boot camp.
Yeah.
You're never gonna forget them
Never,
live.
ever, never, ever. The first day you get there, you go into your bunks, and next morning, it was probably 4 o'clock in the morning. You've seen where they come in banging trash cans and throwing them around? That's what they did. That really happens. And yelling and screaming, and they scare the life right out of you. And you do what they say, and they're mentors, is what they end up being. They teach you everything. They're also there if you're having maybe a personal issue, and they'll help you get through that. These two gentlemen did a whole lot, and for a pretty big company. Do you have the boot camp picture? For a pretty big company of
This
guys.
one
I forget how many were in it.
This one or the graduation?
No, the other one, the graduation. So the formation that you're about to see is my boot camp company. These are all the gentlemen, and this is just one company. There was, what, 10 or 15 companies. I can't remember exactly. But there's a lot of guys in that one unit. But this'll show you kind of how big it is. So by the end of I was there, boot camp was 8 weeks. I was actually there for 9 weeks because we started a little early, but by the end, they're your best friends. First day, you're like, what's going on? And you get your hair cut where, they gone. I can't stand it long now anyway, so that's why it's short. Yes.
Are you happy with your career choice?
I'm very happy with my career choice. I made the absolute correct choice for me. When I was in the Navy, I got to go to Egypt. I saw the pyramids. I saw the Sphinx. I've been to Israel. I've seen Jerusalem, Bethlehem. I've been to Greece. I've been to the Parthenon. Italy, where I lived. I went to Rome quite a bit. Pompeii, everybody heard of Pompeii, right? Been there. Been to Spain, France, Turkey. What was Yugoslavia? It was Yugoslavia when I was there. I actually went on a canoe trip in Yugoslavia, down one of their rivers, which still to this day has a pair of my sunglasses in it, that a tree stole from me. So I got around and had a really good time, really good time. have seen as much of the world as I did if it wasn't for the military. And my last deployment was Saudi Arabia, where there were no women drivers, not one. They were not allowed to drive. And the guys are horrible drivers. We had accidents along our road almost every day because of the rain. Another little fact that may not be known is women are better shooters than guys. Yeah? Yeah. Women are actually better shooters than guys. They're easier to teach too, because they actually listen. Guys got this macho thing about them. Oh, I know how to shoot. And you try to tell them something, not a chance. Girls, yeah, they'll listen to everything you say, and will get those rounds on target. As far as one more thing, yeah.
One more thing?
Oh, one more thing. The Vermont Air National Guard shooting team, the Vermont All Guard team, is the best shooting team in the world. We've beaten some of the top military units, active duty, guard, reserve, all over the world. They've taken more trophies and more competitions since 1975 than any other unit in the world. So that's the Vermonters.
Yay.
We like our guns.
All right.
I think we're just about out of time, and
We'd
Jim's
like
gonna
to
wrap this
thank
up
you
for
for
us.
coming in today and taking your time out of the day to talk to us.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Oh, that's nice. Thank you very much.